You won't believe this story, but Will, as a janitor, suddenly came up with a groundbreaking way to clean blackboards. He spotted a math puzzle on the board and thought it was like a game, effortlessly solving it, completely unaware it was a sophisticated math trap. There are only a handful of people who could crack that puzzle. The professor didn't think much of it at first, assuming a clever student was just messing around until he examined that flawless answer. Wow, another genius emerges at MIT. Next day, the classroom brimmed with students from all departments, like an academic carnival. Everyone wanted to catch a glimpse of this math whiz, but students were glancing around, and not a single soul wanted to step forward. Professor, feeling helpless, issued a grand challenge with a problem he'd slaved over with colleagues for 2 years. One unexpected twist. Meanwhile, Will was battling it out with those around him, perhaps fueled by some painful memories he couldn't shake. The officer trying to stop him ended up on the wrong end of a kick, and that kick landed Will in hot water, facing charges of assaulting an officer and heading to court the following week. That night, Will returned to the board, effortlessly cracking the puzzle, just as the professor stepped out, mistakenly thinking Will was up to no good. The professor sought Will, but at the corner, Will was gone, then returned to study the board's equations. Amazingly, when Will saw his own answer, he could hardly believe it came from a janitor. At that moment, he decided to quit his job at Harvard. Every day, he and his buddies were just hanging out, feeling lost about the future. The next day, the professor was back at the board, ready for a new He kept staring at the board, like he had developed a deep relationship with it, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. The professor connected the dots and finally arrived at the building management office. Here, he found a clue about Will, who was fighting for his life in court, using his past experiences as a defense. Clearly, it was Will's first time standing there, and the professor knew right away he was the one. This time around, Will was not so fortunate. The judge didn't offer him any chance of escape, directly declaring, "You're going in." The defense attorney shot down his $50,000 bail request, and Will knew he had to step up his game. Fortunately, the professor found him and persuaded the judge to release Will under his custody, but with 2 conditions. First, he'd have to meet with the professor weekly, and second, he had to see a shrink, making sure he wouldn't be heading back to jail. With the professor's aid, Will was freed, and the professor highly admired his math talent, like finding new land. To avoid being seen through, Will read the therapist's autobiography on the eve of his session, which was hardly surprising. The next day, he seized the upper hand, cracking the code and pointing out the therapist's secret, making the poor shrink scramble for an exit. The second therapist also fell under Will's spell, and despite the hypnosis, it was all in vain. Will knew his psychological troubles too well. Will was unwilling to show anyone his scars, and after 5 failed therapists, the professor turned to an old college buddy, Sean. His old college friend Sean initially refused, but after learning of Will's similar background, he eventually agreed. Will just wanted to get it over with and didn't even give Sean the chance to ask questions. He casually scanned the room, labeling the books as trash, and Sean merely nodded along. Will got bolder, staring at Sean's paintings and bluntly calling them rubbish, and Sean initially brushed it off. Subtitles. They even engaged in joint analysis sessions with Will, until the moment when Will brought up Sean's wife, asking, "Will she leave you?" which immediately provoked a strong reaction from Sean. "If you show disrespect to my wife once more, I'll end you, got that?" Time's up, and once again, Will was full of himself. The professor couldn't help but worry about his old friend. He knew his old friend was in trouble, but surprisingly, Sean didn't give up and continued to fight for Will's healing. Staring at the painting, Sean fell deep in thought. Will was right, Sean faced his own storm too. But that was just a part of his life. In their next meeting, Sean planned to take Will to the park. Will continued to verbally attack Sean, but Sean shot back, "You're just a kid. Don't be so naive." Will's views on art were met with straightforward skepticism from Sean, like an intellectual who refuses to be constrained by the city. Although Will had read many books, he had never experienced the essence of a church or stood beneath its magnificent ceiling. If he talked about women, he might mention a few pleasant encounters, but he couldn't express the sweetness of love. He had never felt the pain of losing a loved one, and he had no idea what real failure was, or the helplessness of just being alive. Because loving something can be more intense than loving yourself, I doubt you've ever dared to really love anyone. All I see is a frightened child. Subtitles. I don't see a smart guy. Instead, I see a scared little kid. But you're definitely a genius. No one can deny that, and no one can understand your inside. Yet you pretend you know all about me. Subtitle. You saw my painting, tore my soul apart. You're just like a little devil, aren't you? He said, I permit you to do this, which is truly an extraordinary thing. He softly closed the door. If your life has courage, is that enough? Because I definitely have a story. Someone once said that. For example, if you don't have courage, then you might want to discuss who you are. Subtitles. It truly leaves me quite astounded. I came in, yet you don't seem particularly interested in doing this, and yeah, I'll probably just say something inconsequential. You can leave now, buddy. Will never expected someone to see through his heart. He never thought anyone would articulate everything so candidly, yet he still wouldn't let down his guard.